George, thank you so much, mate. It is absolutely incredible. I'm going to spend so many hours staring into this tank. It's awesome.
Hi everyone, today we're going to scape this Evolution Aqua, is it? Yeah, Evolution Aqua 900. Quite unique scape, very tall, so we've got a very high aspect ratio. I've only ever scaped one of these before for a client, that was a good few years ago. It is a challenge, it is obviously not rimless, so we have a limited access. There's a couple of braces there. I've got a little step ladder thing here to get in, but it's going to be a really beautiful scape, and it's for my new friend Matt. Matt is ex-Royal Air Force as well, and he was actually posted at Wittering, where I used to be based, and he got in contact because of one of the videos with Alec. So, and he actually lives literally about 5 miles away from where I used to live, so it's all very coincidental, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to build a beautiful aquascape for Matt and his new family. And it's going to be a good one. We've got some beautiful materials, take you through the whole process, of course, very much a tutorial style, step by step, what we're doing, exactly why we're doing it. And by the end of the process, I'm very hopeful we'll have a beautiful aquascape that's going to be relatively low maintenance because we're not using super high lighting. We're going to use CO2 injection and liquid fertilizers, so it's kind of a mid-tech kind of aquarium, slightly high-tech, but because of the moderate lighting, it's going to be, you know, fairly easy to maintain for Matt. He's a busy guy, self-employed, he's got a new baby, so he certainly doesn't want to be getting his hands in an aquarium every day, or he might do, actually. Okay, first job we're going to do is actually install the hardscape. I'm actually going to do that before the substrate because we've got very tall hardscape and it might be too tall to actually put on top of the substrate. Also, we can glue the hardscape to the base of the glass. The wood is going to want to float, so it's important that we anchor it somehow. Usually I just pile rocks on top and use that as the hardscape as well as an anchoring function. But today we've got some really cool glue. I don't think I've ever actually used this one before. Hobby Fix recommended this by Aquarium Gardens. In fact, they supplied pretty much all of the materials we're using today. It sets very quickly, so we don't have to wait too long for it to dry. And literally just glue that to the base in the appropriate configuration, which we've already discussed actually at Aquarium Gardens in the dojo. I'll overlay, I think we came up with 3 options, didn't we? So I'll overlay those now, and I think we wanted to go for the first one. So we'll try to copy that as best we can. Beautiful woods. I actually think there's a couple of different types, but it all looks similar, and that's what we want to achieve. We wanted to have a coherent theme with this nature aquarium. And if you've watched any of my aquascaping tutorial videos, you know how I emphasise how important it is to have a strong hardscape composition and great use of materials as well. The hardscape really does form the foundation, or the basis, the skeleton of the entire layout. If we start off with a very strong high impact hardscape, it's really much easier to create a beautiful aquascape in the longer term once the plants have grown in. There's 3 pieces of driftwood and then there's 1 riverwood, so it's pretty much the same type, generic driftwood. Very grateful to Aquarium Gardens. They've always got great a selection of hardscape in, and if you're ever in the east of England, recommend having a visit. Maybe give me a message and I'll meet you there for a cup of tea. So we'll get that in first, and then we'll get the rocks in, and then we'll put the substrate in. We'll talk about the substrate in more detail. The stones are beautiful. This is elderly stone, also known as Frodo stone. We have some beautiful large pieces here, and then we're going to go really detailed with smaller pieces and pieces of gravel and things. We don't want to have necessarily carpeting plants because it's such a tall tank, and then we'd need much more light. We'll talk about the plants in much more detail later. So we'll do the hardscape, we'll do a time lapse of that. It's going to take quite a little while. It's really important to get it right. We'll talk about the composition once we've done it, and yeah, let's have some fun with some wooden rocks. Boosh. Okay, slight change of plan. We're not going to glue the wood to the base. There's actually plenty of room in the aquarium already. So the first thing we're going to do is install the substrate system. Quite a comprehensive system using lots of different products. First thing we're going to put in is the Parasand Advance. This is going to go towards the back. We're not planting a carpet in the front, we've just got kind of mid-ground and background plants. So that's going to go towards the rear. This helps to provide nutrients, aeration, and just a proven performer in terms of providing a long-term stable substrate system. And then on top of that, we've got a small bag of Tropica substrate. This again provides lots of nutrients. There's a high cation exchange capacity, so it brings in nutrients from the water. And just another really good product to add, further good stuff to the substrate system. And then on top of that, we're going to put a kind of regular soil. This is Tropica aquarium soil. 3 bags of that, probably more than enough. Maybe only need the 2 bags. Again, this provides lots of nutrients. It also helps to reduce the aquarium water pH and hardness, making it more appropriate for most plants, fish and shrimps. And then finally, if we wanted to top that, we've got some Tropica powder as well, and that is exactly the same as the soil, just has a much finer grain size. We might not need that because we're not using carpeting plants or anything really with delicate root structure, but we'll see how we go. So that's the actual kind of nutrient-rich substrate system. That goes towards the back of the aquarium. And then in the front, I'm really excited about this, we've got some decorative cosmetic sands and gravels to add a really lovely contrast. This is obviously quite a white grey colour. And then we add some more details with a slightly larger grain size. And then, can you just pass me that bag there, Matt? To the left there. That needs a good old rinse, mate, if you don't mind, as well. We've got some Xingu from Dennerle. So we're going in kind of stages of grain size from the smallest to the biggest. And then finally, we've got some really small pieces of Serimbu stone or Ryuho stone. And then that will lead up into the actual big pieces of the elderly stone or Frodo stone. So you can hopefully see what I'm doing there, going from a very fine to the much larger texture. And then this creates such a beautiful natural look. And you could argue that you don't even need carpeting plants because it looks so beautiful. It's much lower maintenance. And, if you've got lighting challenges to hit the bottom, the cosmetic sand foreground is the way forward. And I'm running out of breath because I forgot to breathe during that whole dialogue. Okie dokie, we have got the wood in the position that we want, and you can see that we've kind of randomly placed rocks. That's not the final layout at all. We're just using that to keep the wood in position. And now it's going to be a case of gluing things together, so hopefully it's not going to move around too much. I think there's 4 pieces of wood altogether, and yeah, basically they all need to be anchored somehow, and they're eventually going to be anchored to the rock. But the first thing is going to kind of anchor them together, so it's just one coherent piece of wood. So if it does move, it all moves together, and then it's going to be really easy just to position it where we want. And then once that's done and dried, we can then position the stones in place and then glue the wood to the stones. The really cool thing about the glue is that we can, whilst it's wet, we can crush up some soil and we can push that into the glue. I'm not sure if it's black or white. If it was white glue, we would definitely need to disguise that because it just looks really ugly. I think it might be black glue, so it might not be too bad. But we will be with so many beautiful epiphyte plants that we're going to insert between the wood and the rocks as well, so there'll be absolutely no visible glue whatsoever. And then the whole idea is this hardscape is just going to be one solid, coherent kind of piece. And then when Matt does get to maintain the tank, he's not going to kind of dislodge individual pieces of wood or stone, because it's just all going to be, joined together like one solid unit. I think it looks great already. I mean, it was such a beautiful wood to work with. As you can see, it didn't take so long to do. We did do a mock-up in Aquarium Gardens. It doesn't look exactly like that. I think it actually looks better in my mind. I don't know.
Agreed,
Yeah. And it's always very interesting when you're doing a dojo or a scaping dojo in the store. It's a really good idea to take photos and then you can replicate. But the really interesting thing is when you actually do put it in the aquarium space and you're using the aquarium lighting and you're kind of constricted in this space, it really does change the whole vibe. So don't be fixated on trying to 100% replicate what you've done in the shop necessarily. Have a bit of flexibility with your kind of aesthetics, and it's all about just playing around with it until you're 100% happy. And I would always suggest, especially if you're a beginner, do take your time, do plenty of iterations, maybe take a photo of each iteration, have a look at it, you know, in your own time, go back, have another play. You know, you can take several days, several weeks, however long you like, until you're really comfortable, really happy. By no means rush these things. You know, this is a beautiful hobby designed to kind of teach you a bit of patience and just have fun with it. And yeah, I'm excited. Can't wait to get all the stones in place and the foreground gravel and obviously the planting.
The front that comes out to the left-hand side.
This one,
yeah.
It's very characterful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the really cool thing about hardscape these days. There's so many great materials to work with. When I was doing this 20 years ago, you're lucky to get just like a piece of mapani wood, you know, with no character on it, just like a big solid lump, and it is really hard to work with. But now, it's almost hard not to create something beautiful if you've got the right materials.
Yeah, you struggle down this way for
Decent materials.
Yeah,
okay.
decent materials. You get kind of.
If anyone's watching it, they've got a store owner in the southeast and you've not got any hardscape materials, then you need to go. I recommend ALF or J&K. They normally have really good hardscape products, especially ALF. They're near me, Bedford actually. So yeah, I recommend those guys. So next job, glue the wood together and then put the stones in and then glue the wood to the stones. Let's do that now. Okay, that was harder than I expected. The glue that I was using, I don't think is really appropriate for a very solid adhesive. It's very flexible. It seemed to take too long to dry, and long story short, we had lots of dramas trying to fix it in place. So we've used the old school liquid type super glue with filter media, what's it called? Floss, filter floss. You know what filter floss looks like? Just tear pieces of that off and then wedge it in the gaps and then put your super glue in, and then I've sprinkled the Tropica soil powder to disguise it. So hopefully you can see it looks really nice. I've used a paintbrush to create an open space here ready for our cosmetic gravels, and that's going to be the next step. Now what's going to happen is the soil is going to want to migrate forward. We have a natural slope here, and of course the soil is quite light, it's rounded, so it is going to want to roll forward, especially with shrimp and any fish that dig. So it is important to mitigate that, and there's a few different techniques we can use. What I'm actually going to use is some Ryuho Xingu at the base and really wedge it quite tight in between the base of the stone and the wood, and hopefully that's going to prevent the soil from coming forward. Any other gaps we can also plug with the filter wool, and again sprinkle the soil powder over to disguise that, because the filter wool obviously looks ugly being very bright white. So that's the next step. We're going to focus our attention on the cosmetic foreground, and we'll do a time lapse of that. It's going to again be quite a long process. Okay, so the hardscape is complete. Really happy with what we've done so far. I think the foreground has exceeded my expectation with I think we've got 4 different grades now. We've got the fine kind of white grey, then we're leading into a larger grain version of that, then the Ryuho Xingu, and then we've got some small pieces of the Ryu to complement the elderly stone. It's obviously not the same type of stone, which we normally do, but I think it complements it quite well, and because it's kind of intermittently mixed amongst the elderly, it does look very natural. And once it's wet, it will change its appearance once again. And then of course, once it gets like a natural coating of biofilm and algae, it's really going to look natural. Loads of really great gaps in there to put our plants in, either epiphyte plants or so we've got some other foreground, mid-ground plants that we can pop in there as well. And talking of plants, we're going to prep those now. We've cleared an area in Matt's beautiful kitchen. We're going to do a production line. I think we've got at least 50 pots here to do. And I'll just talk you through them very quickly. There's lots of species. We're going for a very complex nature aquarium. Matt's a big fan of the green colour, not so fan of bright reds, so that's fair enough. Also similar to my own tastes, although my Highline 400 is pretty colourful. It's really interesting. In my mind, the harder the water, the redder the crypts go. It's just something I've noticed over the years. Yeah.
I like the different contrasts in the greens when the crypts go in. It's just like the
bright red.
Like the hate dries and stuff.
Yeah, a bit too intense.
Yeah.
We were talking about reef tanks, weren't we, and how they're a bit too gaudy, a bit too colourful.
Like greens and browns are nice.
Yeah. So I think it's about connecting with the nature that we're familiar with. you know, and like we like the woods and forests and yeah, ferns, because you come from Wales and you like being by the water. Yeah, all that good stuff. So let's talk about background plants. We've got some Crypt, Crispitula or Blyxa, depending on where you're from. Actually taken from my OASE Highline 400 this morning. So, you know, these are 60 centimetre long leaves, going to add instant impact to the background. And then we have some Vallisneria nana as well. And that's also going to grow really tall and add a beautiful background curtain effect. That's the background plants. Those stem plants today, apart from, did I get, yeah, we've got some Staurogyne, that's a stem plant, and some Picostemon, that's a stem plant as well. We've got some small crypts. We've got Cryptocoryne amicorum, which is very similar to Cryptocoryne wendtii. And we have Picostemon halferi. We've got lots of Eriocaulon Vietnam. This is a regular pot as new. But Dave from Aquarium Gardens has quite kindly donated some mature Eriocaulon Vietnam from their beautiful Iwagumi layout. So that's going to add a beautiful foreground, midground effect. I'm going to pop little individual sprigs of that almost randomly throughout the rocks and then also in the background as well. And then we have loads of epiphyte plants, Bucephalandra. Matt's a big fan of the Bucephalandras, so we've got Bucephalandra Serimbu Brown, which is a new one on me from Dennerle, and then we have Bucephalandra Theia, which is similar to the Bucephalandra Red, and we've got Buce Kedagang. We've also got Staurogyne repens, which we've talked about already. That's also going to be used as an epiphyte and also as a mid-ground plant as well. That can develop into a nice compact bush, which I know Matt's a big fan of. We've got Cryptocoryne wendtii green, one of the easiest crypts available, grows to a perfect height for the mid-ground as well, and develops a nice red line through it, depending on the water conditions. Also got some Helanthium tenellum green, which again, I'm just going to pop almost randomly across the foreground amongst the kind of the smaller stones. And that's going to slowly, hopefully, it's going to just slowly carpet, enough not to be too invasive. So Matt can just control how that goes across the foreground. And also we can just insert some of the Staurogyne repens as epiphytes, just literally wedge them in the nooks and crannies. We also have Anubias minicoin, Blyxa japonica, which is another mid-ground plant, and Microsorum Trident. Oh, that's not Microsorum Trident. 5 pots of Microsorum Trident, and Anubas Petite or Nana bonsai. So lots of plants, lots of preparation, lots of planting, but you know, this is the best bit. You know, the aquarium plants are so beneficial to any aquarium system. They produce oxygen, they remove harmful nitrogen compounds such as ammonia and nitrites, they remove toxic heavy metals, they remove, you know, all the kinds of nasty waste from the fish, and they just look beautiful, you know, and you're actually witnessing these things growing in your care. You know, this little thing is Matt's little universe. You know, he's like God, he's controlling it, and he's rewarded with something absolutely beautiful to look at. You can see it grow every week, you can maintain it, and yeah, what a lucky guy. Quite jealous actually. I think it's one of the best hardscapes I've done for a client, and I'm not just saying that.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah, I really love the complex foreground textures, and then yeah, so many plants. It's going to look really mature straight away, so it's going to be a good one. Quite low maintenance, mostly slow growing plants, apart from the Blyxa potentially, and the Vallisneria and the Helanthium, but Matt's more than capable of maintaining it, and I'm always on hand to give him some advice as well. So we'll prepare those now, and then we'll get those planted, and it's almost time to say cheerio. Okay, here's a really interesting story for you, I think. A bit of background on how I got to know Matt. And I just think the amount of coincidences, sometimes I feel it's more than a coincidence. Now, I don't know if anyone here believes in fate or any kind of mystical going-ons, but I'm starting to feel this way sometimes. So, Matt was at RAF Wittering, Royal Air Force Wittering, at the same time as me, and we didn't know each other then, but I would have dealt with Matt because he would have had to have obtained ammunition from one of the places I worked, so I used to look after some of the ammunition and explosives that we were dealing with in the Air Force at the time. So that's the kind of start of the story, start of the coincidences. Nothing too coincidental there maybe. But then it turns out he lived in one of the places that I worked before joining the RAF. The job actually before I joined the RAF, Matt lived in the same town, which happens to be about 10 miles away from here. So there's another coincidence. And now Matt lives in the same town, near enough, about 5 miles away from where I used to live, literally just before I joined the Air Force. So he also has ADHD. He's also left-handed, but does everything else right-handed and right-footed for football. He's clearly, obviously, younger than me, but that's, you know, by the by. And he's been into aquariums. He's been into aquariums for a long time, as have I. So, just a lot of coincidences there, and maybe that's all they are. But I just think it's really interesting to explore these ideas, and yeah, just really grateful to Matt, you know, for inviting me to escape his aquarium at home. And he's got a 6-week-old daughter who I'm hoping will enjoy the aquarium and grow up with it, and, you know, who knows, become a hobbyist herself or whatever. But I think to do a job like this, to create beautiful, you know, effectively, you know, living works of art in people's living space is an absolute privilege and a joy, and it helps to make up for, you know, a lot of the suffering that we've both been through, you know, either through years of undiagnosed ADHD and PTSD from the military. You know, Matt was in Afghanistan. He was part of the MERT team, which is the emergency kind of response team. Like, they go out in helicopters and pick up injured soldiers out on the ground that have gone through, you know, battle with the enemy. You know, and at the moment, of course, I don't really want to talk about what's going on, you know, on the global conflict thing, because I choose not to really consume any media around that due to my own experiences. I do find it quite triggering. But it's just, I don't know, I just thought I'd talk to you about it, guys, because I know some of you find it interesting and you appreciate the human stories behind these things sometimes. So if you are listening and enjoying what you're seeing, then please hit the like button and please subscribe if you haven't done so yet. It really does mean a lot, and it is really doing me a favour. The more subscribers I get, the more likes on this video I get, the more opportunities I have to do this more. You know, it's not just a case of me counting the amount of likes. It's actually what it does. It helps the video to reach more people. And if the video reaches more people, I'm hoping that aquascaping can help more people. And I feel like it fulfills my perceived kind of purpose on this planet at this time, to help people with aquascaping. So thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I never take it for granted what I do for a living now, and I know at any moment it can change. You know, we often get surprises in our lives, don't we? ill health, you know, family members' ill health, where we have to prioritise other things in our lives over our own things, you know. So whilst I have the means and the motivation and the opportunity, I will always be aquascaping and communicating aquascaping in the best way I can to as many people as I can. And you liking and subscribing helps to do that. So thank you. Thank you very much. Especially, I never say thank you enough to the long-term subscribers, to the people that comment almost on every video. You know, thank you so much. Here's Matt now. I'm going to stop now before I start crying. I'm a bit of a crier sometimes, especially when I'm a bit tired. Had a bit of a disturbed night last night. So Matt's been feeding me coffee and now he's feeding me beers. Okay, we're almost fully planted, just the background plants to do now. Vallisneria, Nana, Cryptocorini, Melanthai in the background. Obviously we're filling up with water right now. Just off cold because we don't want to shock the plants. We've got quite cold water now here in the UK. But I really believe it's one of the nicest nature aquariums I've done in a long time. I think the complex mix of textures works really well. The foreground cosmetic sand.
Yeah, I'll get that wiped down later on when I get my hands in there with the filter sorted.
It's a really good scape.
Just the details, mate, are just so good. I couldn't put it on paper to look as good as this.
Thank you.
It's exceeded my expectations for sure.
Yeah, I hope it gives you many months, years of pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. The missus is going to be over the moon for sure.
I hope so. It's important that they like it. You could pop your oh God, I forgot her name. I'm so sorry. My daughter's name.
Oh, Olivia.
Pop Olivia in front of it.
Oh yeah.
And she'll just, because of the lights, the water movement, they love it.
Yeah, especially when the fish get put in as well.
Just realised that's Blyxa japonica there, that tiny little thing. That might get too big for that, but you can just move it back if you need to.
Yep.
This one here, you're going to see.
Yeah, see?
Yeah. The other bits are just the Helanthium, you know,
Yeah.
Send out little runners and you can control that. Everything else, quite a big bit of Staurogyne that's going to grow, and then I'll put the most of the Blyxa here, so that sort of fill up this gap here, and everything else is just going to mature really slowly. So, it's been a real pleasure, mate. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for last night. That was great fun in my old hometown. What an amazing pub with the live music.
Yeah, on a Tuesday night. Yeah.
Yeah, nice burgers, nice pool. I think you beat me at pool, didn't you? 2 games
2-1,
to 1. Yeah. But I'll come back in whenever.
Yeah,
We'll do a
100%.
video.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you're ever my way,
Yeah.
give us a shout.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome. I don't know what it is, mate. I don't know why I love it so much exactly. I think it's so many reasons. I think it's got to be a combination of being near water, plants, nature, like just the overall theme of nature, the greenery, the rocks, the wood, the sand, the movement.
I think that's it. It's just tranquility, isn't it?
It feels really safe. It makes you feel comfortable. Like intuitively, you don't even have to think about being comfortable. It just makes you feel it.
I think as well, you know, when you're looking inside these four walls, for those few seconds that you're looking, nothing else matters.
Exactly.
It's just what you're focusing on in there.
Yeah. Recently I've started doing this a lot.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah. It's magical, really. And it just transports you into that other world. In a world that's full of, especially at the moment with all the conflict and suffering, it's important to detach from that and connect with something that gives you that sense of peace. And you know, we've both had obviously challenging backgrounds with the military, and you saw a lot of stuff in Afghanistan. You know, I saw a lot of stuff, and when you're doing this, you know, either you're maintaining it or just viewing it, you completely, you know, at peace with something bigger than yourself, right?
Yeah, 100%.